So I think that's a great question. And I'll back it up to a very simplified version of early regulation, and just by way of example. So, early services, whether they were phone services or video services, they had to build their own sort of purpose-built facility, right? You want to do telephones, you built a phone network. And you want to do broadcasting, you built your transmitter. Regulators started the regulatory process for those services by looking at the service, right? We're going to regulate that voice service will be available ubiquitously. We're going to regulate that when we got cable, that if you come into an area, you're going to wire everybody or you can't come in, those kinds of things. The point is that the view was we look at the service sort of holistically, and the regulations sort of apply to that. It wasn't until fairly far into it any purposeful separation of the regulation of the network, right? Whether it was a phone network or now a cable network or an internet network or something interconnected. We didn't start to separate those out cleanly until relatively recently, and they're still it's not clean separation. So the regulators, the view was, we're regulating for service, even more so in Europe, and any place where it had sort of national PPTs, right? It was just all about the service. I think that the new model needs to be that, and I'm not arguing for regulation, nor am I arguing for regulation to go away. I'm arguing more for the principle of the thing, which is that you need to think about the network as one entity, and the services on top of the network as another entity. So, and I think that's true actually whether you're Verizon or Comcast or Microsoft. And if you are then in the regulation space, it's what are the services that the network provides, and is there a business for those services? And that's a critical issue. Is there a business for those services? And then if you're other services, what are those businesses and obligations? You might say that in sort of new world, the canonical service is the World Wide Web or IP bit delivery, right? You could say that's a service, and then everything else rides on top. And you could say in the BIOS case, for example, that the network is one business and the content package is another business. That's a whole upset to the business modeling that people do today. On the other hand, one of the things that's always been true, and I like your desire for a monopoly, I think, but when competition comes in, and I think Cisco has some great reports that sort of demonstrate this, competition tends to lower prices. Lower prices generally lead to lower margins, and there is a point at which, if you don't optimize the business well enough, then you go away and somebody else, catches up. I'm not saying you're going away, but I think that is partly what's happening here, in that there was a stable set of businesses which were predicated on integration between the delivery infrastructure and the service itself. There's new entrant services that have been made available because of the IP network. And it's kind of from a carrier perspective, not being a carrier, but looking at it up front, there was this period where it was, we discovered the internet. This is a great thing, we can sell it, right? Right? This is a revenue opportunity. Then all of a sudden there were these new services that people started delivering, and it was like, there's this internet, and delivering these bits is a threat, right? And so then balancing those two opposing views, I think, is a challenge for AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, the whole sort.
So,
hold on 1 second. I'm going to. Sorry. I'm going to ask, we'll do 2 more, because I'm going to ask Robin a question, and then we'll take a question from Len. Not only is margins a clever capsule for the challenges, but it's pretty realistic capsule of the challenges, and from what I've heard, pretty dismal. Since we've only been into this for 20 years, it's going to take another 20 years to resolve all those issues. Or, in your opinion, from what you're seeing day to day with the actors in this space as your clients, is there hopefully a shorter time frame in which they'll be resolved? And in particular, do you know, or does anyone in the room know, if there is someone out there developing a sort of universal donor device integrator that solves the problem of distribution to multiple devices.
Sure, okay. So, okay, back to the Moore's Law reference on the speed of how all this is gonna go, I think this is gonna go very fast. I think people are looking at a 5-year window, we can talk about it today, but I really think it's that fast. We need content providers and the distributors are struggling, frankly, to keep up and overcome some of these issues, but there's such focus on it that it's just gonna go very, very quick way. I think in the next year, you'll see certain things, but it's just gonna kind of accelerate. So maybe a Moore's Law, I mean, sort of legal resolution of issues. Technology